This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We begin with a developing story. The federal government will pay for a study into the feasibility of searching a landfill north of Winnipeg, where human remains may be buried. CBC's Cameron McLean joins us now live from the newsroom to bring us the latest. Cam?
Kathy Merrick of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says the Federal Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Mark Miller, promised today to cover the cost of a feasibility study. Families of two women who may have been killed by the same man have been calling for Prairie Green landfill to be searched. That is where Winnipeg police believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron may have been taken. Winnipeg police have said they don't have the ability to search the site themselves. Now, a committee including an anthropologist and community Indigenous leadership will determine how and if a search can be done.
Who's on this committee, Cameron?
Chief Merrick says the committee will include a representative of Long Plain First Nation, that's the home community of both women, and Dr. Emily Holland, a forensic anthropologist from Brandon University. There will also be representatives from the AMC, the police service, and the mayor's office.
Now, this case was top of mind in Ottawa today as well. What happened during question period?
Winnipeg Centre MP Leah Gazan asked Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to respond to a letter from Manitoba First Nations leaders and Indigenous groups.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday family members and Indigenous leaders wrote an urgent request to ministers. They are asking this government to provide resources for searches of the Prairie Green and Brady landfills to find the remains of loved ones, and to invite the UN Special Rapporteur on the rights of Indigenous peoples to oversee the searches after the Winnipeg City Police said Indigenous peoples are on their own. The Prime Minister admitted the crisis of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people was a genocide. Will he respond to these demands and make federal resources available now?
Hear, hear. Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians' hearts are breaking for the terrible news coming out of Winnipeg on more missing and murdered Indigenous women. This is absolutely unacceptable. We have received the letters from the families. We see the level of pain, and the federal government will look to do whatever we can to support the province, the city, and whoever needs support in terms of giving closure and justice for these families.
Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino spoke to Police Chief Danny Smythe today. Mendicino says he made a firm and concrete commitment to support the province and city with whatever it needs.
How does Grand Chief Kathy Merrick feel about what happened today?
She's feeling encouraged.
I feel really optimistic that we have done this in a very timely manner, and that it was the wishes of the family and the family members and leadership in particular as well, that we have to lead and we have to ensure that we get things in place.
Chief Merrick says the feasibility study committee will meet for the first time tomorrow afternoon. Janet?
Thank you so much. That's our Cameron McLean reporting live tonight. Children's Hospital is putting a halt to non-essential surgeries starting tomorrow, while staff are redeployed to the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit. Dr. Sean Young of the Health Sciences Centre says influenza A and bronchiolitis cases are surging. Patients are coming into the hospital for the first time when they're already seriously ill, and many have to be admitted to the pediatric ICU. Young says the hospital has no choice but to cancel surgeries just to keep up.
I want to clearly acknowledge for everyone that this is far from ideal. We recognize any change to the timeline for surgery will cause some stress and worry for our patients and their family, particularly in cases involving children. I'm a dad, I get it. No one is happy that this is occurring in Manitoba, just as no one is happy this is occurring in other provinces.
Dr. Young says the schedule for adult surgeries has not been impacted so far. In December so far, 87 cases of influenza have been admitted to Children's Hospital. A fourth youth has been charged in connection with a fatal stabbing at the Millennium Library in Winnipeg's downtown. Winnipeg police say they've charged another 14-year-old boy with manslaughter. Police announced charges against 3 other boys on Monday. A different 14-year-old faces a charge of second-degree murder. A 15-year-old and a 16-year-old also face charges of manslaughter. Former high school football star Tyree Kayer was fatally stabbed at the library on Sunday. His friends say he was an outgoing guy who could light up a room. Well, he didn't win Winnipeg's mayoral race, but former City Councillor Kevin Klein will be Manitoba's newest MLA. Klein won the by-election in Kirkfield Park last night for the Progressive Conservative Party. Let's take a look at the numbers. Klein amassed 2,356 votes, edging out the NDP's Logan Oxenham by 160 votes. Liberal Rhonda Nickel did very well as well, enough to make it a 3-way race. Voter turnout was 37%. Klein's victory allows the governing PCs to hold on to a Winnipeg seat. But as CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, the narrow margin of victory raises questions about the party's re-election chances next year.
The next MLA for Kirkfield Park, Kevin Klein!
Premier Heather Stephenson introduced the newest member of the PC caucus at a Holiday Inn on Portage Avenue.
This is an incredible feeling. I don't even know where to start to say thank you.
Kevin Klein could start with Scott Fielding, the former PC finance minister, who resigned his Kirkfield Park seat in June. Klein could also thank all Winnipeg voters who chose not to elect Klein, but Scott Gillingham as mayor in October. That allowed Klein to run as the most well-known name in a by-election to fill a seat the PCs usually win. But even with those advantages, Klein barely squeaked by his nearest competitor. Klein says all that matters is the victory.
I think when the Winnipeg Jets win by 1 goal in overtime, they still win.
The NDP was emboldened enough by their second-place showing to give Logan Oxenham another shot at Kirkfield Park next year.
We're very happy with the results here. It's a great tell to what's to come for Kirkfield Park.
Even Fletcher, from many years ago.
But this longtime political observer says neither the NDP nor the PCs ought to be happy with the results on Tuesday. For the PCs, this is the second straight by-election where they barely held on to a supposedly safe Winnipeg seat. In March, Abhi Khan eked out a narrow victory in Fort White.
It shows that the PCs are vulnerable. We saw that in Fort White. Now we've seen it in this election, that the candidate holding a seat for the PCs, but only just barely.
Adams also suggested the close margin means the NDP missed an opportunity.
Maybe if the NDP had a candidate who was better known in terms of a big name, somebody who had been a previous city councillor or something.
Adams said the Liberals missed an opportunity too. The perennial third-place party has fewer resources and can focus them better during a by-election.
Voters here in Kirkfield Park are going to do this all again in another 10 months, along with the rest of Manitoba. The 2023 general election is slated for October. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
When a doctor in a small medical facility needs help, they may not know where to turn to get that help quickly. As the CBC's Ian Fraser reports, a new service could change that.
A doctor in need will have a friend indeed.
We're really trying to, that phone a friend analogy, we really want to kind of put that out in front so that the docs and the care providers out in the province can focus on the person in front of them and not making a whole bunch of phone calls.
A new centralized service is supposed to save that time. Currently, a doctor needing a specialist or looking for a hospital to send their patient may have to call multiple facilities just to find somebody. But starting in May, the health minister says help will be one call away.
It will give healthcare providers across the province access to a dedicated team of experts who can answer their questions and coordinate patient transfers to the most appropriate location for care.
The new service will be called Virtual Emergency Care and Transfer Resource Service, or VECTORS for short. It'll be staffed 24 hours a day by an emergency physician, advanced care paramedic, and an advanced practice respiratory therapist. This recommendation came out of Doctors Manitoba's Rural Healthcare Summit. Expert advice on standby will be a relief for emergency physicians like Dr. Rob Grierson.
I can't tell you the number of times where someone's called me and they've got somebody in front of them that needs help. It's not always a critically ill patient, but it's someone who needs advice, needs some help, maybe needs to come for further care. And often they've had to make 6 or 7 or a dozen phone calls, and they're kind of saying, can you just help me?
Physicians can only be helped with those patients who have emergent medical issues at first, but this service is expected to be expanded in the future. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Steinbach.
Soccer fans everywhere were on the edge of their seats for this afternoon's World Cup semifinal match between France and Morocco. It's the first time an African team has ever made it this deep into the competition. The CBC's Andrew Wilds takes us into the Winnipeg excitement.
The excitement here could rival any stadium in Qatar. Not even the snow could keep these fans away. Moroccan and French fans across Winnipeg turned out to support their teams today. In cafes, in schools, to watch a World Cup semi-finals like no other. For Morocco to complete an already unprecedented run to become the first African and Arab country in the finals. For France, the reigning champion, the rare chance to repeat. France scored early. The Moroccan fans here rallied their spirits and continued to cheer. The hushed crowd seemed to feel every shot their team missed, and France would score again. With less than a minute to go and Morocco 2 goals down, fans here are still hopeful. It's a testament to what the Atlas Lions have achieved. And the fans here say that regardless of today's outcome, they are proud of what their side has accomplished.
So we've exceeded expectations. Now we're behind our men right now. We're rooting for them, and I think for history, it just means everything.
We wanted to win so bad, but we're still really proud of our team. We want to team this World Cup, So Morocco will never be the same again.
Yes, I'm very proud of the African countries. I think they have, it was 5 that qualified, and I hope 2026 there could be more.
For French fans,
winning back-to-back, it would be a really cool achievement for France and would make me happy to be able to see again.
But to do that means defeating Lionel Messi and Argentina on Sunday. Andrew Wiles, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meteorologist John Sauder joins us now here in Winnipeg. The name of the game now is shoveling and driving safely because it is slippy and slick out there.
Yeah.
How much snow fell, John?
Well, I've got some amounts for you, but we've just had the first wave. There's gonna be more tomorrow, probably a little bit more on Friday, but for the meantime, it's kind of let up a little bit, so that's pretty good news. Let's have a look at some of those amounts right now. And in the Winnipeg area, it's anywhere between 7 and around 9 or 10 centimeters. Of course, we're still getting light snow now. Brandon at 12, Emerson at 10. These are the amounts I could find anyway. And boy, if you measure snow in your yard and you want to email me sometime, that's great. Just measure it carefully and let me know how much you're seeing. Right now, we're at 0, dew point 0, and that creates a relative humidity at 100%, as you know. Winds not all that strong, not really a factor in this storm so far. And I say so far because by this time tomorrow, we're going to be dealing with some windy conditions and possibly some blowing snow. More on that in a second. This hasn't changed, probably won't change until the system kind of moves off to the east and leaves us alone. That won't happen until late Friday and on into Saturday. You look at the satellite and radar conditions, and you can see the cloud thinning a little bit. I wouldn't count on seeing any kind of stars tonight. In Winnipeg, we've seen the last of our snow for a little while. Still some of that falling west of the Red River Valley. And you can see, and I was talking about this yesterday and the day before, the enhanced snowfall amounts in the higher terrain. And we're seeing that on radar right now. There's plenty more to the south of us, and the circulation is right here. Counterclockwise, that's the center of the low, and it has stalled right over eastern sections of South Dakota. Check out how big this system is. It's drawing moisture right off the Gulf of Mexico, as Colorado lows typically do. What you're seeing here is heavy rain, storms, and some tornado threat, and then all that becomes snow up into the eastern prairies and into northern Minnesota, North Dakota. You get the idea. By the time we get into tomorrow morning, the next band moves our way from the east. Don't often get snow bands moving from the east, but it's because of the position of that low pressure system. We'll get a couple of waves of snow tomorrow. I think the shot should be about 3 to 5 centimeters, and then more periods of snow through the day on Friday, possibly an additional 2 to 4 centimeters on Friday before we taper to flurries on Saturday. So between now and Thursday, these are the amounts that the graph model is pulling in. If we take this another 24 hours out, we're looking at more snow. And this is, again, additional snowfall on top of what we already have. And look for the brighter colors here in the wind field. And as we get into tomorrow afternoon, you'll see gusts here 49 to 52, a 56 to the west. And that continues Thursday night and right on into Friday. So a windy period with falling temperatures, and with that cooler temperatures Thursday night and Friday, we'll be looking at some blowing snow because the snow will be lighter and it'll be easier for it to blow around. -2 tonight and tomorrow morning, band of snow in the morning, maybe another one in the afternoon at -1. That's when winds are getting strong. And then in the long range, well, we're looking at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we'll just unwrap your forecast here. -7 on Friday, -11 on Saturday, and a high of just -16 and still cloudy on Sunday.
Weather Update is brought to you by Home Equip, your trusted local source for Pride Mobility scooters. From sales to rental and repair, our team is here to serve you.
Don't forget to subscribe to our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. If you miss a newscast or you want to see something again, you can watch it whenever it's good for you. Stay with us. National news is coming up after the break. As Canadians turn toward holiday festivities, Parliament Hill is shutting down for the season as well. But it's not all calm and bright for the minority Liberal government. The stability it's enjoyed because of the confidence and supply agreement with the NDP may be headed for trouble. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian explains.
The Liberals bringing some holiday cheer to the last sitting of the year, while their political opponents warn they've got little to sing about. The Bloc Québécois says it could see plenty of paths to the polls next year, even if it doesn't want an election.
I'm certain that immigration will be a very, very important issue next year. And with immigration always comes the issue of the French language. I believe this will be a quite bumpy year, and at the end of it, there might be some bruises on this government.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
While the Conservative leader spent his speech to caucus still trying to get acquainted with Canadians.
And remember, our job is always to stand on the side of the common people, their paychecks, their savings, their homes, their country. My parents taught me that it didn't matter where I came from, it mattered where I was going.
But it's not the official opposition the Liberals are likely to be watching most closely. The NDP has been propping up Justin Trudeau's minority government with a confidence and supply agreement since last March. It's now threatening to pull that support over the Liberals refusing so far to increase healthcare spending to provinces and territories without strings attached, and Trudeau refusing so far to meet collectively with Canada's premiers about this.
We have a crisis in our healthcare system that is impacting children. Children are suffering. And the Prime Minister says that because of an impasse with the premiers, that he can't do anything.
The Prime Minister, though, declined to say whether he thinks his deal with the NDP is a gift that will keep on giving.
The reality is we're ambitious parties that are progressive in our values and trying to get things done for Canadians. Canadians are facing a tough time. They've been facing a tough year. We work together on delivering dental benefits and rental supports that are going out today. We continue to work on meaningful things together.
Nothing would be automatically triggered should the deal evaporate, but the Liberals would lose some stability they've had in their minority governing position, meaning a return to finding consensus with different parties on a case-by-case basis. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
The British government says at least 4 migrants died when a small boat capsized off the southeast coast of England. Search and rescue efforts have reportedly saved more than 40 people. CBC's Abby Kubavasan has more.
French and British authorities responded to a distress call around 3 o'clock Wednesday morning. They did manage to pull some people out of the icy waters. It's believed that up to 50 people were on board the small boat.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will share my sorrow at the capsizing of a small boat in the Channel in the early hours of this morning and the tragic loss of human life. Our hearts go out to all those affected and our tributes to those involved in the extensive rescue operation.
Sunak announced plans to limit these crossings. He focused on rejecting asylum claims from Albania. The government says Albanians now make up the highest number of people crossing the English Channel.
The UK and France both need to act to stop these dangerous boat crossings. The brutal truth as well is that criminal gangs have made money from those lives that were lost today.
But critics blame the Conservative government's existing hardline immigration policies for fueling these dangerous journeys. They argue that while official paths exist for people to enter the United Kingdom from Ukraine and Hong Kong, these avenues aren't always available for many others, including Afghans and Syrians.
If we don't look at the reasons people come to the UK, the reasons they're fleeing their countries of origin in the first place, and how we can get people here safely, I'm really sorry to say I don't think this will be the last tragedy that we see involving small boats at sea.
Some 500 people have crossed since just the weekend, and about 40,000 have made the perilous journey this year alone. They're fleeing conflict, political persecution, or serious economic hardship in their home countries, knowing many have already died making the exact same journey. Abby Kubavasan, CBC News, London.
New Zealand already has one of the lowest smoking rates in the world at just about 8% of their population. But the country has just introduced a new round of tough anti-smoking laws.
The ayes are 76, the noes are 43. The motion is agreed to.
The new regulations are among the strictest anywhere. They ban the sale of tobacco to anyone who was born after January 1st, that is, 2009. That means the minimum age for smoking will automatically rise every year from now on. So 14, then 15, then 16. There are restrictions on the amount of nicotine in smoked products, and the number of tobacco retailers will be cut by 90% by the end of next year. The New Zealand government wants to make the country smoke-free by 2025. The new rules do not apply to vaping. Employers are facing a labor shortage across the country in many sectors, and that includes Quebec, where businesses are looking to younger workers for help. Now the provincial government wants to limit children in the workforce, with plans to table a bill on child labor. CBC's Kathy Sané has the details.
Last spring, 11-year-old Amanda worked with other children at this canteen, handling hot oil and sauce several hours a week. Her story prompted Marois Risky to act. Is it normal for an 11-year-old to be working 12 to 18 hours a week, she asked. And she found an ally.
A potential law for better regulating child labor is essential in Quebec.
6 Canadian provinces already have laws in place with a minimum age for employment between 13 and 16. Quebec would opt for 14, with exceptions, including family businesses and fruit picking.
You will always have below 14 to present a parental consent that is written.
Boulay also plans to limit the number of hours 14 to 16-year-olds can work, 17 hours including the weekend, Monday to Friday up to 10 hours during the school year. Breaks and holidays are excluded.
Employers have to know that they can be fined.
It's a question of safety. Last year, workplace accidents among teens under the age of 16 jumped 36%. For Risky, it has to stop.
We never faced a critical situation as this one when we saw so many industries looking for people, for employees.
And working long hours can affect success at school.
Education must be the priority. When you're young, you should be in school.
Last summer, inspectors with Quebec's Workplace Safety Board visited retail stores, hotels, and restaurants, informing employers of their obligations and young employees about their rights. The Quebec Labour Minister knows much more will be needed to support his future law. Cathy Sonnet, CBC News, Quebec City.
School breakfast programs across the country are seeing a spike in demand. In Ottawa, one school says the number of students and families relying on them has doubled since the pandemic started. And as Nicole Williams reports, the cost of providing the service is also rising.
At Featherston Drive Public School in Ottawa, getting breakfast is part of the routine for many.
It is all about having the time to have a good breakfast before you can think and achieve in the school.
More than a quarter of the student population has signed up for the school's breakfast program, 80 out of 300. And according to the organization behind the program, it's the same story across the city. The Ottawa Network for Education runs the breakfast program for nearly 14,500 students in Ottawa, and the cost for that this year is around $1.8 million, up hundreds of thousands from previous years.
It's stretching our program budget. We have the highest nutrition budget that we've had in the 30-plus year history of the program.
The network would normally see 2 schools join the program each semester. So far this year, 5 have signed up, and 10 others are on the wait list. Clarissa Arthur is the executive director of the Education Foundation of Ottawa. It supplies gift cards to students and families for clothing and food costs. She says right now, demand is outpacing supply.
We're having to kind of, slow things down as far as how quickly we're able to give funds out to families. And as someone who was a young single mom of 2 small children, I know how important it is to have the things that you need and not to have that limit on it, especially in times of emergencies.
And Ottawa isn't alone. Programs across the country are seeing similar spikes in demand. It's why advocates have been asking the federal government to commit to a national school food program. Government recently launched public consultations into what a nationwide policy here could look like, but so far there's no timeline on when those results will be made public. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
This has been a record-breaking year for the number of students leaving Hong Kong and coming to Canada. Thousands of students have received Canada study permits, and many of them have decided to stay here permanently. CBC's John Hernandez has more on the mounting exodus.
It's kind of depressed, and actually, of course, many people furious like I do.
Starting fresh hasn't been easy, but this 20-year-old student from Hong Kong knows life is even harder for many people back home.
Hong Kong is taken over by Chinese government, so no one wants to stay in Hong Kong for a long time.
Lily is among 8,000 Hong Kong students who have come to Canada this year. CBC News has agreed not to publish her last name. She fears speaking out against the Chinese government publicly could put her friends and family in Hong Kong at risk. Since 2019, thousands of pro-democracy advocates and protesters have been arrested in the region.
The freedom of speech is lost in Hong Kong. Few news media shut down, and I think they kind of succeed that they really take over Hong Kong government. I think that I don't have future in Hong Kong.
More than 100,000 people have left Hong Kong amid China's growing control of the territory, and Canada appears to have become the destination of choice. In 2022, Ottawa issued more study permits to Hong Kongers than ever before, more than doubling numbers from 2019 and 2020, while beating out other popular destinations like the UK and Australia. The surge came after Canada announced it would fast-track permanent residency for students from Hong Kong.
Canada responded at a very good timing, and the process time pretty fast.
This advocate says the policy is attracting people of all ages.
All the talented people, all the people that with resources are leaving Hong Kong.
And an already robust community here has made Metro Vancouver an attractive destination.
In the last 2 years, the Hong Kongers community in Vancouver actually lend a helping hand to help these newcomers. Even though we don't know each other, our community helped them to find a place to stay.
The permanent residency pathway will be in place for another 4 years as more and more people from the region look for a new place to call home. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The goal of the COP15 summit on now in Montreal is protecting biodiversity. After the break, why reaching an agreement may be endangered. And then John Sauder will take a look at his Manitoba forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. It's down to crunch time for negotiations at COP15. Time to hammer out a deal to try and protect the world's ecosystems. But as high-level officials are arriving in Montreal to attend this international summit, there are fears talks could be on the brink of breaking down. CBC's Jayla Bernstein explains.
A 750-year-old slice of nature driven across Canada as an emblem of blockades against old-growth logging on Vancouver Island.
It represents, obviously, the loss of biodiversity that we're facing in Canada, as well as loss of Indigenous culture.
The goal of the negotiations at the summit is to agree on a global plan to stop the unprecedented speed at which species are disappearing and create a more sustainable relationship between humans and nature. This is what negotiators are poring over. It's called the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. And inside, there are more than 20 goals that need to be ironed out. Let's have a look inside at just one example, like Target 3. This is the latest wording of Target 3 that's been shared with media. And this is what it looks like if we remove everything that's bracketed and undecided. This observer was in the room last night when talks hit an impasse. Developing nations walked out over financing.
They were very exasperated, their faces. You can actually see them like, this is kind of face. And then they started just tweeting each other. And then they spoke up. And they say that they cannot continue this conversation.
Funding isn't the only hurdle. There's a long list of sticking points, including how much of the world's land and oceans will be protected and how to hold countries accountable for their pledges.
1 million species, that is 1 out of 8, is at risk of becoming extinct in the next decades or so. So the situation is serious.
With government ministers joining talks tomorrow, the added political pressure is expected to help push through an agreement. Activists say waiting any longer to restore the balance with nature will be too late.
Action is needed immediately.
Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Montreal.
Trading carbon credits is often touted as an economical and practical way to reduce the release of greenhouse gases into the environment. In some jurisdictions, like British Columbia, for example, the practice has been around for about 20 years, and there's been major growth in demand for these credits. Radio-Canada video producer Camille Vernet takes a look now at how 2 BC communities are looking to trade carbon credits through more sustainable forestry.
This forest is one of only a handful in BC producing carbon credits.
It fits very nicely with our Indigenous laws to look after the forests and do our part, our responsibility to taking care of it.
This community forest is a partnership between Lil'wat and Squamish nations and the municipality of Whistler. They sell carbon credits by reducing their tree harvest in half.
We generate between 10,000 to 12,000 tons of CO2 equivalent in offsets on an annual basis.
These carbon credits are then sold to individuals, companies, or government hoping to offset their emissions. For example, when booking a flight, you might be asked if you want to compensate for your carbon emissions by planting trees or by preventing a tree from being cut down. BC is leading the way when it comes to verifying projects to make sure they are truly emission-reducing.
It was actually a very challenging process. In some ways, I do hope it gets easier, but I think if you sort of weaken those regulations and make it easier to access these types of programs, you might not have either as valuable an offset or you may not have a true offset.
The offsets program could be an opportunity for rural BC communities
to be funded to change the way things are happening. And right now, I don't think we are utilizing that to the extent that we should.
But there is a risk that comes with storing carbon in the forest.
Get a credit, for example, by not harvesting an area, and so it becomes older, and then it becomes more susceptible to a major fire. And we're seeing this happening in California.
Despite those challenges, the carbon market is still on the rise. On Vancouver Island, Mosaic, a forestry company, started its own carbon offset program in March.
Big Coast Forest Climate Initiative is a deferral of 40,000 hectares of mostly primary forests on the coast of British Columbia for at least the next 25 years.
So is this a solution to climate change?
It's not going to be a help. It just shows that we have work to do. It just ensures us, future for our children to be able to have the same opportunities as my ancestors had.
And he says this alternative approach to forestry can be a path toward reconciliation. Camille Vernet, Radio-Canada, Langford.
Time to check in again with meteorologist John Sauder. You know, we're getting snow here.
Yeah.
Waves of snow. Is it the whole province? Are they getting it up north?
Not as much in the north, but yes, we are seeing some of this, especially tonight in the northwest. Let's have a look at the amounts expected between now and tomorrow morning. And you can see the the Flin Flon area picking up 8 or 9 centimeters right up into Lynn Lake. 4 centimeters tonight, up to about 5 in the morning on Thursday. And then that's in Norway House, and a couple of centimeters in Thompson. Out in eastern regions, not as much. And if we go forward here the next several hours, there isn't a whole lot added to that through the day. So most of what lands in the north tonight will be in the western regions and will be tonight into tomorrow morning. Look at these temperatures. Lots of zeros on the map, even downtown at the Forks, +1 in Morris right now. And then you widen things out and you look at 0 to -1 out in northwestern Ontario and Barons River. Quite a bit cooler in the west, and we're still seeing some snow falling around Riding Mountain, Dauphin areas down through Brandon as well. These are the current numbers across the north tonight. Mild for this time of year, -4, even in Churchill at this time of day and at this time of year. That is quite mild, probably 10 degrees off the seasonal normal. These are the forecast conditions for tonight. Another 2 to 4 centimeters possible in Kenora. Some of that mixed with freezing drizzle over in northwestern Ontario overnight tonight. Here in the south, we'll just see periods of light snow. It's really just flurries right now, or very light snow, and temperatures really not falling all that much. -2 to -3 for overnight lows. The normal daytime high is -10. The normal low is -20. So these are way off the seasonal normals, even out to the west. And we'll see some additional accumulations of snow in the west, that higher terrain out toward Dauphin, Riding Mountain, up into Swan River. Another 5 to 10 possible in Swan River tonight. And across the north, there's that snow up through the west, 2 to 4 in Lynn Lake, couple of centimeters for Thompson, maybe 4, and some freezing drizzle possible up around Churchill. And then tomorrow, some of that in the morning, and then light snow in the afternoon. But again, very mild, -6s and -7s from Churchill down through the east. A high of -3 in Norway House, -5 in Thompson, and some additional light snow, but not much more accumulation tomorrow in through the Paw and Flin Flon. Here in the south, we'll continue to see some more light snow. Couple of centimeters in Brandon, 2 to 4 in Portage. Around Winnipeg, upwards of 3 to 5 centimeters. Same true for Emerson, Steinbach, out toward Pinawa and Lac du Bonnet as well. More accumulating snow tomorrow, and this will start in the morning, move to us from the east. 2 in Kenora, 5 centimeters on the way tomorrow in Fort Frances.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
A local group of volunteers is struggling to meet the demand for holiday hampers. They're hoping to get donations and volunteers to help deliver Christmas cheer to those in need. Their story's next. We'll be right back. They call themselves the Peg City Kindness Crew. Great name, huh? They're a group of volunteers who, during the pandemic, started helping out fellow Winnipeggers in need with helping them with lunch kits, helping them with holiday hampers. Well, they've kept that kindness going through the last 2 Christmases, but this year they're in a bind. I spoke with the co-founder of the group this afternoon. Jay Malowski, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How is this holiday season different from past years for the Peg City Kindness Crew?
I think with inflation and the price of everything going up, we're finding that it's a lot harder to find sponsors, and there's more need as well for food and just everything for the whole year so far, honestly.
How many hampers have you been hoping to put together?
So last year we did 146, 152, somewhere in there. I can't remember the number. But this year we're at about 186 is what it sounds like.
186 families have requested help.
Yeah.
And how many hampers have you been able to fill?
We've got about 80 from past donations and past finances that we've had, plus sponsors. But we've got about another 100 that we still need to fill.
Oh gosh. Okay, so so that's a fairly urgent need.
Yeah, and we're starting hamper delivery on Sunday, so it's coming pretty quick, and it's starting to get crunch time and a little bit stressful.
What do you need?
So at this point, we need 100 people to step up and be like, yes, we'll sponsor hampers. We can put together a hamper for about $45 for our cost. So either cash, or to be like, hey, we'll do it ourselves and we'll deliver it ourselves. That takes it right out of our hands. Or we need things like proteins, like turkeys, chickens, hams. Fresh produce is something that's very hard to come by right now. And those are really the main things that we're struggling to get.
What about deliveries? You mentioned that it would be great if somebody said, hey, we could take care of it and we'll even deliver it ourselves. But do you need transportation?
Yes. So we also need help delivering the 100 hampers that we're trying to scramble to put together by Sunday. 180 total. But some families have taken them on themselves, but the majority are volunteers and that sort of thing. And a lot of our volunteers are busy for the days that we need to get them out because it is the holiday season.
That's quite a push.
It is.
If someone's watching and they can help, Jay, what do they do?
Send us an email, give us a call, message us on Facebook or Instagram, and one of us will get in touch with you to put you in the right hands to get involved.
Jay Malowski, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
PegCityKindnessCrew@gmail.com. If you can help, please do. Some hardworking horses with some very special jobs were served up a holiday treat this week. These horses work at a school in Virginia, which teaches students who learn differently. So you see the Clauses were there, the students, the horses, everybody decked out on these bright, cheery outfits. This was the school's 33rd annual horse holiday. There's even a goat there. The goat got roped into participating in the parade as well. It was all the best at last for the horses, though, and they were all led to these Christmas trees that were adorned with carrots and apples, which apparently are favorite treats of equines everywhere. This school is well known for taking learning beyond the classroom with fantastic community activities like this. Your 7-day forecast and daily lift still to come. You're watching CBC.
Well, don't put away your shovels just yet. More snow on the way tomorrow, 3 to 5 centimeters. Winds get strong in the afternoon, stay strong Thursday night right through Friday, and that's when we'll start to see some blowing snow with more snow on the way Friday and cooler temperatures. And then we're still cloudy on Sunday at -16, and look at next week, mid-20s in the morning and barely better than -20s in the afternoon on Monday and Tuesday. So that's clear and cold weather.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Do you like that, or do you like warmer temperatures and snow? It's a bit of a hot debate in Manitoba. What winter weather do you prefer?
Well, we wanted to hear from you, so we sent CBC videographer Darren Morash out to Assiniboine Park this afternoon. Here's your daily lift.
I like the
not really cold and not very hot. It's just nice, you know.
Lot snow and then
look
warmer.
Beautiful, look beautiful.
And this morning I supple, you know. Yeah, I like it.
I will say cold and less snow is better for travel, but I have to say it is beautiful out here, for sure.
Definitely warm and snowy.
How come?
It's peaceful, you can get outside, she can get fresh air, we can get fresh air. It's less icy, even though it's more slushy.
Beautiful because it's good to walk and enjoy the weather.
Morning, afternoon, evening.
He loves here.
Yeah, I walk around here all day.
You've been out here all day?
Yes.
You've been walking around?
Yes.
He come almost every day.
You can do it. You can do it. I feel bad for the guy in the truck.
But he got out. He did get out.
Yeah, there's good and bad parts about, you know, the snow, and I know cross-country skiers, snowmobilers are going to be happy this week, and yeah, it's some new snow.
It's snow.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us. Drive carefully and walk carefully if you're out there. Bye.